Hello, listener. It's Adam again. How you doing? This week is the Edinburgh Fringe, but the subtitle should probably be the Edinburgh Fringe 2018 and other theatre shows we've seen. Because in this episode we discuss the Fringe 2018 and basically any other theatre that we and our guests have seen. And our guests this week are Mary Davidson and James King. This episode is also special because it is two parts. I've separated the questionnaire because the full length of the whole episode combined would be around 2.5 hours, and I think it's just easier if the questionnaire is a separate episode, which will come out probably the same day, if not a day after this episode is out. Okay, so you'll hear me at the end of this episode just to remind you that it's two parts, so if you're wondering where the questionnaire is, I'll remind you at the end. So, I hope you enjoy. This is us discussing The Fringe and other theatre performances.
Hello, everyone!
Hi.
Hello.
We are back, and it's about the Edinburgh Festival Fringe 2018 this time. We took a while to get around to do this one. We did the year before in September. So it was just after, but anyway, that works. And it'd probably be released in April, because now we've said that we'll have a guest a month, and an episode with guests a month. So we have some guests with us. So we have Mary and James.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, guys. Who are you and what are you doing here?
What? Who are you? Sorry, I'm James. I was on the first year of ACS with you guys, I guess. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the Fringe and random acting anecdotes, I hope. Hopefully having a bit of fun. Any other information you want to know? Social security number, anything else,
NI number.
Hi. Hi.
Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary. I guess I'm here to chat about the Fringe. I've done it in very different contexts, and going back this year to an extent, so very excited to talk about that, and also hang with friends, but I'm not an OG ACS person, sad times. Representing
I know.
2017.
Anouk, Adam, who are you and what?
Who am I? No idea.
If you don't know by 70 episodes, then God knows.
God knows.
Actually, this will probably be like 80 odd by now, so...
So we're supposed to be talking about last year's Fringe, 2018, but it can go anywhere. So do you have, not in terms of performing there just yet, but was there a show or performance or an art installation, anything that you saw in the last 3 years that you were so enthralled by that it still resonates with you? Anything?
I quite liked something from this year. It was... a play called A Man's a Man. Like, some people might be quite familiar with it, some people might not. It basically dealt with kind of the famous Scottish writers, and mainly focused on Robert Burns quite a lot, and how his work influenced both his personal life, and then it kind of, I'd say it kind of not dramatized but heightened some of the relationships he had. But that was really, really interesting, and the use of music and the use of, like, the interaction between the characters was really natural, which I think sometimes people can suffer by, especially if they introduce music into something. It can feel a bit kind of jazz hands and tits and teeth instead of like genuine emotions. And it was really nice to actually see that, somebody singing something, but it felt like they were singing to the person and they were speaking all these melodic, wonderfully crafted lines from Burns to this actual person. It wasn't done in a way which seemed contrived, which was lovely.
I haven't heard that phrase in a while, tits and teeth.
Yeah, I know. MD.
I think they use it in a chorus line, no?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do. Uh-huh.
Musical theatre.
Mine is actually a piece of musical theatre too. It was My Left, Right Foot, the musical that the National Theatre of Scotland / Birds of Paradise Theatre did last year. And I took my mum and dad as well. And it was their first show of the Fringe last year. I was like, it'll be really good. Trust me, it'll be fine. And it was fantastic. I felt like they really addressed like the idea of accessibility and how we see disability on stage really well in like the funniest way possible. But the humour is very like Book of Mormon, if you've seen that, or South Parky. Like, it is very like in your face, well past politically correct. Like, they were talking about spazzing and like being a spaz on stage, which you just don't say, but in that context, it was like you could just laugh. So that was really great, and the vocals in it were fantastic. But for the whole thing, they had a character who was BSL signing the entire show, but she was also part of the action, not just, at the side. And then they also projected like audio description and like the words up for all the text. And then they had like disabled actors within the company. So I just thought that was fantastic, 'cause you never see that representation of that kind really in major theatre, and especially somewhere like the National Theatre of Scotland. So the only thing was the venue wasn't very accessible, in my opinion.
That is fantastic.
Which, I mean, like, there was like a disabled like wheelchair space, but it was like a very high raked audience seating in this very narrow big building. So that was interesting. But yeah, that was my highlight.
I have to concur. I went to see it also. I talked in Anna and the Apocalypse how I hate musicals. And now I have exceptions, Anna and Apocalypse, this one that you just talked about, and a few Joss Whedon stuff. But yeah, that was a nice time there.
It's so funny. Just like we were laughing, but you're not sure if you're allowed to be, because you really shouldn't, but also you can. So it's just less like, I'm shaking with laughter, but we shouldn't be laughing at these things.
Especially with your parents.
Oh my God.
I have no idea. Like, my parents are lovely people, and I have the utmost respect for them. But I think it's because they're both very kind of reasonable, responsible people, that they don't really find some of that stuff funny. I'm kind of just sitting there going, but
no, yeah, they loved it.
That.
They loved it.
Fantastic.
But it was just one of those where you're like, okay, well, we're 3 minutes in and you've dropped so many words that I would never be in the same room with my parents, kind of thing. But it was great.
There's no easing your way.
No, it's like, well, this is happening.
And spaz. That's it,
Okay, it's going to be one of those nights.
Yeah.
Oh, me. So I can't remember what it was called, but what was that play that we saw? I think it was 2016, where it was a one-woman show and she was getting ready to go out.
Yeah, love it.
Girls' Night Out.
Was it called Girls' Night Out?
Girls' Night Out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really liked this play, and it stuck with me because I think it was just one woman, and it was a tiny stage, and the way that it was like basically her in her bedroom getting ready for a night out, and all the things that go through. I'm going to say woman's head, but I'm sure it happens in men's heads too. It's just probably takes 10 minutes. This is me about feminism. And what was nice was that it wasn't preachy. And it was about being a woman and the struggles that you deal with in a family context, and also in a context where your parents aren't where you are from, which I think is really new and something that I struggle with specifically because my parents are from different places. I'm mixed race. And so what was nice was that she was talking about how, my parents want me to get married, and like, what? Like, I'm British, and like, this is so weird. Like, marriage is not even in my head. And like, having aunties being like, so when are you going to have children and all this stuff? And it's like something that just wasn't talked about a lot on stage. And I think she carried it really well. And it's kind of one of my dreams to do a one-woman show, because it's a challenge. I don't think it's seen that much in an accessible way. Sometimes it's like, this is a one-woman show, and people get really scared about it. But
vagina monologues.
Exactly. And actually, it can be super accessible, and also something that it doesn't have to be women go and can relate to it. It's like everyone can relate to being in that position of like, I'm getting ready, I'm having all these like familial issues and pressures, but also, what do I wear? Do I go slutty, or do I go sexy casual? Do I go kind of mental? Like, and then when it's out there, it's like, this is so crazy. Why are we stressing out about this? So all these questions were going through my head, and I was like, that was really well done. And I think she goes back every year. I think she's done it a few times. So I'm glad that she's had success with that.
The one play that sticks in my head is not from the Fringe, actually. It was a German play that me and Anouk saw in 2016, where they did it was an adaptation of Miss Julie, but it wasn't Miss Julie. It was only the section about the maid. But what they did is it was half screened and half acted. So they had a crew of the actors playing the characters, and then they had the crew filming it so that you could see it on top as it would look as a film. And then they had like Foley artists at the side doing all the sound effects for the film. And it was unbelievable. It was
amazing.
It was this piece of art. I'm like, I can't get over how good this is. And like they had like stand-ins for the nurse character. So while she's getting ready for another scene, they have these stand-ins for like a hand model and all this absolutely bizarre and crazy piece of theatre that I can't honestly work out how they did it.
It was very, because of course it had to be choreographed, and it's like, how long did they have to rehearse that? Because while one character is going off, the double has to come on, and then you have the camera on and the light on, and then there's a different scene going on here, and and it's like very German or European, because it's kind of existential and you're watching a play, but it's a film set. But it was really interesting as an actor, because there's like two very different forms of being on stage, but also on film, and very different ways of putting yourself out there.
Have you seen the video that's going around? I can't remember what the program is called, but it's the new Jim Carrey program where he's playing like a presenter of a children's show. I can't remember what it's called now, but basically one of the opening shots is... it's a one shot, but it's showing lots of time passing. But there's a video going around, I think it's like Facebook or Twitter or something at the moment, but it's showing the process that they had to go through to get all of that, and it's so interesting. I wonder if that play might be a little bit like that in some ways, that you can see, like, you can also appreciate the artistry and the technique of all of the people you never see when it comes to stage or screen work. And I think, without, picking up too many people, but like it's so nice to be able to see somebody do their job really, really well, and like, but somebody who most audience goers would never think of, really. Like nobody really thinks of the boom operator or the lighting technician, really, unless you're really into that type of thing.
Unsung heroes.
Yeah, they really are unsung heroes. But then seeing that, I think it'd be lovely.
Yeah, catering. I'm telling you, catering. Bad catering ruins a film.
That's true.
Nobody's got the energy to do it.
Please give us a nice food.
Always the catering. Underrated department. Any caterers listening, Godspeed to you, because you keep the industry running, literally.
Yes.
Craft services.
Craft services.
Yes, as Jeremy Clarkson would attend to.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Get good catering.
Mine, I don't know if you've seen it this year or any previous year. Shit-Face Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would love to go see it. I missed it again.
It was Hamlet this year, so obviously being obsessed. So the first year we were on stage, so I didn't go see many shows. The second year I went like crazy. And the third year I was a bit skint, so I'll go in France, and so I don't have to spend that much. But I went to see Shit-Face Shakespeare Hamlet, and I shortened my summer vacation of 5 days to be able to see it at least 5 more times.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Wow.
And it was so nice. Like, so they obviously, because I think they only did comedy before, so it was the first tragedy that they adapted. They removed all the lines from Polonius and they gave it to various other characters. So Polonius could be an audience member.
Lovely. I like that.
And that was, sometimes you know exactly where you have to sit on the front row to be picked.
Yes.
So on the 2 first times I watched, and I was, okay, that's where I need to sit.
Funny you should mention Polonius. I've prepared a little monologue for you. Do you mind if I just insert it in? Is that okay?
Oh, well, they did like some funny stuff. Like there's this letter from Hamlet to Ophelia. Should we read it for see what it said? A letter from Hamlet to Ophelia in front of her father. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
It's like, dear Ophelia, I want to caress thy back. Oh, that's nice. I want to caress thy neck. I want to lick thy pussy and thy crack.
Oh no.
Yeah, saucy. And I died dramatically in front of 800 people.
Beautiful.
No.
That's the dream, isn't it? You know?
That's the dream.
Many
That's the
people
dream.
do die hideously in front of 800
I mean,
people.
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's not the dream. Don't do that. That's a bad dream. Wake up.
That's a great joke.
It's a fantastic.
not.
It's a
Great
fantastic
joke.
That is a good joke.
That's just sad.
Including us in our year one year when we did a show to one man and his dog, and that man happened to be a reviewer.
That was beautiful. I love that show.
Really?
See, like
Yeah.
that show though was so lovely in every aspect. I think the Fringe really encapsulates this. I'm sure you'll talk about it later on, but like the audience really does have an effect on the actor, but sometimes in a much more positive or a much more negative way than you'd maybe first expect. Like I really enjoyed the show when it was like 2 people, but I also really enjoyed the show when it was like 5,000 billion people. You know, it was a full house. But that One Man the Dog one was interesting, definitely.
It's weird as well because sometimes you wouldn't see the audience until you came on stage,
Yeah,
and
I
so
love
you
that.
had to have that weird moment of like, oh, there's no one here, or oh my god, there's so many people here, and oh my god, that's my mum.
Yeah, it's just the
And
shock
then
of you
you're in
walking out.
character.
Or they're like much closer than I anticipated because their knees are on the stage. Like,
Yeah. It's like, oh shit, they're right there.
I remember it wasn't the Fringe, but I remember there was because I just finished doing a tour of lots of different places, and some of the places that we went were care homes. And of course, if somebody is in a care home, they might have dementia, they might have a whole host of problems, but the amount of times that they would just sit center stage and you just have to act around them or incorporate them in was fantastically fun. That's why I say, like, you should always, I think every actor should work, or every person should at least work a month in a care home and a month in a restaurant, because then nobody would be abusive to restaurant people. Don't be abusive to restaurant people. And everyone also would understand how mental old people can be, but how wonderful and exciting and funny they can be as well. And I think, like, I need to actually watch it, but I think that's what Derek was trying to do with, Ricky Gervais with Derek. I think that's what he was trying to do, show that element. But yeah, like,
That went really badly.
yeah, it did. It didn't go well.
He overstepped the boundary, I think.
He did.
In terms of performing, so what's your experience? You've been there. What were you there for, and what were you in? And if you have some stuff coming up for this year's Fringe, then now is your time to shine.
Okay.
What
You
oh,
go ahead.
on you go.
Okay. As of yet, no, I'm not in anything this year. But employ me. No. So
Please.
It might be a bit late by the time this goes out. That's
exactly. I know. But yeah, no, I mean, I was in the SAS ones with you, which was really good fun. They were actually, I think we benefited from the 2 shows that we were in were actually really, really good fun to do.
So, as the person who wasn't there, can
Yes.
you just give a brief synopsis
Sure,
of the 2? Because
I
I
will.
saw the one with all the women in it.
Yes.
So you'll just
you
have
would
to give like
you
a
will
brief.
have.
the one with all the women in it. I don't remember the name, but the one with all the women in it.
You had 3 shows. How am I supposed to remember?
That's true.
There is
yeah, so,
the poster behind.
us.
Oh yeah, and I stared
I
at it
was
for
in-
like a year.
like, we were in Troika and Leftover.
Okay.
So Troika was based a bit on Le Ronde. It was basically a story cycle arc thing about how, I think it more dealt with like relationships and how different like social classes can interact with each other, and how silly and funny and horrible the same relationships can be between one person and then with another person. And like, there was lots of kind of subterfuge and cheating and unhappy marriages, but then there's lots of funny moments that, you know, I think like your scene with Christy, so Yann's scene with Christy, was fantastic. So Yann was playing, I think it was like a film producer or like a road producer.
It was the Harvey Weinstein way before.
Yeah, it was the
My.
OG Weinstein. He was, you know, it's fantastic. And of course, Christy then walks out with a massive big strap-on with a big dildo. I know, it's fantastic. But they've just been, it's kind of like the morning after. I believe it was the final scene of the play, wasn't
We need
it?
the setup. The setup to that joke is the fact that Yann convinces another character in the play that the only way he's going to produce their movie is if
They sleep.
they sleep with him.
Yeah.
And then we wake up, we go to the next scene, and we find out, wait a minute, that's not the person he went to bed with. This is another character. What happened?
Yeah, I know. It was hilariously funny. And then it was the last scene in the play, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It
and
was. Yeah.
My dad captured that.
Yeah. Trust me, that image is not leaving anybody's mind.
I think the bigger picture with Troika is, it was supposed to be about the social changes, which is what they're on basically is.
Yeah.
But in our one, it was more about the idea of women having the power. So it would be a story cycle would be in one scene a female character would not have any power, and then the next scene they would have power over another character. So for example, if me and Anouk did a scene, Anouk would have all the power in my scene because I had the power in my previous scene. So the male characters would start off with power, and the following up scene they wouldn't have any. So it was a cycle to see, like, women can be in a bad situation, but then they can turn it around. So it was all about the role of power and responsibility within different relationships, which was quite interesting.
It was interesting as well because we actually, pretty much all of us were horrible people.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like I've been typecast already because I'm always playing a horrible person, except for last year when I played Aladdin. He was great.
Horrible person.
Horrible person. But like...
Oh, no, he isn't.
I feel... Stop it. I feel like that was quite interesting as well because it was power... It was like a power play, but then also playing people that you necessarily wouldn't like, and how a horrible person would be desperately wanting love in one scene and then desperately making someone feel as small as possible in the next one.
Mm-hmm. I love playing characters that I hate, though. I think there's... Like, definitely. But I suffer a bit from your typecasting as well. I think it's maybe to do with accent in Scotland, maybe. It's like, because when you walk onto a set and you sound like this, instead of sounding like that, like, a Scottish accent is much more, like, inviting. Whereas if I sound clipped and harsh, then they might not like that character very much. But like, I completely agree with you. Like, playing characters that you don't necessarily like, though, is like a fantastic way of doing things. Because, like, I think you can really sink your teeth into it. Like, you can really be like, do you know what? This person is a horrible person. They're trying to abuse their power. And I think it's quite nice in some ways.
But to be an actor and hate your character, you have to find the reasons why they've done it and to then play it as, like, I love this character. Because you can't play a state of being evil because then it looks...
pantomime
evil, unless you're doing a pantomime. That's
different. But I am in agreement.
We have a good conversation in the Bin Laden episode about that because we discussed with obviously the guys who did War of the Newts last year. I don't know if they're doing something this year. Hopefully, they're doing something at the Fringe. But they did the one man Bin Laden show, Naive Theatre, and they talk about the whole because he plays. Bin Laden, so it's a constructed version of Bin Laden that is likable, because if you just played, one version of Bin Laden, there's not a lot you can do with that.
Yeah,
it's like how there's a one-man Hitler show where it's like the idea is like, all I have to do is make you believe me once, and then let me in, and then that's it. So you want more on that sort of conversation.
Basically, it starts with Hitler being off. I haven't seen it. This is what they were talking about. It starts with Hitler being off stage and saying one of his like really famous speeches, which is like harsh and like loud and gestury. And then he comes on and he takes off the moustache and he tousles his hair and he like takes off the swastika and he's like, right, well, that's done. And he's just like this normal guy. And then he starts joking with you. And each time he makes a joke, it becomes more and more racist. And then there's a point where you're laughing and you're like, oh wait, this is Hitler. Fuck. And then you realize that you have become one of his followers. And that's how dictators become dictators, because it's like, that's how they have the power. It's not that like everyone is racist and this is what happens. It's just slowly like trickling.
Nobody hates dictators until they are a dictator. And that's the thing, is they
become a follower.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, usually, if you're in a dictatorship, you don't realise you're in a dictatorship.
That's true. I mean, that's also true.
Until the rest of the world comes in and goes, hang on, this isn't how you're meant to do it.
Mate.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, shit.
Oh, wait, we're killing people. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, like.
Or unless it's a communist dictator and you are the one being oppressed.
Yeah.
That's like a different balance.
That's true. That's true. But no, I'd like to see something like that. That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah,
but I mean, on the topic of Bin Laden, I mean, he had to be a charismatic person. I mean, there's people who are like have been like in MI like this, this special forces and secret forces, who've all obviously had to then infiltrate Al Qaeda or different kind of terrorist cells. And they say, like, wait a minute, like these people are like really, really persuasive. They're not going, we need to kill everybody, lots of rage and anger. They're like, no, but we need to do this because this is the right thing to do. And they explain it in such a like lovely and calm and charismatic way. But you realize that their calm and charismatic way of explaining things ends up with you hurting somebody else. And you're like, okay.
I think as well, it was also talking about how, let's talk about where this anger comes from.
Yeah.
And because of the way that we are educated in the West, America and Britain, we don't know quite a lot of the things that we have done to other people. Britain has pretty much ruined the world. Literally nearly every country has been ruined by us. And it's like the problem is that because we don't learn it, when something like that happens, we think, well, that was unexpected. We have no idea where that anger comes from. And
why do the Indians want to be their own country?
Yeah,
what do you mean? Everything's fine.
But we want their tea.
I know. Why is Pakistan so fucked up? Well, maybe it's because you partitioned it in a really bad way and it was really badly done, etc. But I mean, of course, there are so many issues with it, but that was what was nice, is because it actually teaches you that you look at yourself as an audience member and you think, and I think that's why theatre and film is so amazing, because actually it can totally change your life.
Mary, in 2016, all those years, you were also...
Millions of years, no. Yes, I took a show for the first time to the Fringe in 2016, so it was like my year before I moved down to Glasgow, and I had a mentor at the time, shout out Clara Bloomfield, you're a star, who basically challenged me to not stagnate as an artist, but to actually do something with the year and to take a show to the Fringe. So she supported me, I got funding, was part of this like youth art scheme, which was great. So kind of the 6 months before that started, had a breakup. So obviously everything in my life was about that going very wrong. And just really wanted to make a show about modern love, but not about my personal, I'm gesturing, I apologize. Not putting my life on stage, because I don't think that's very fascinating, but just like more how we as people were interacting in love. So I put out an anonymous survey online and got people to send me their stories, and I got a bunch, like loads of really, really interesting stuff. Everything from like people from way back who'd met at a dance to, people who are on Tinder, and used all their stories, had a bit of artistic license, and kind of made an episodic show out of that called I Love You, It's Over. And so me and my friend Stephen performed in it at the end. It was a bit of a dramatic week to get it together, but we did 2 shows at the Fringe and then did it back home in Aberdeen. And my favourite part was I improv'd like a dating lifespan with an audience member who didn't know I was going to date them during the show. So we got this like sign and put it on them and called them Barry. And then Mary and Barry would date throughout the show. So you'd have our first date where like we'd met online. So I was like, oh, you still look like your picture. And then depending on how game the person was, depended on how the first date went. So I was just trying to get as much information out of it. And there was one guy who I picked on who was making up incredibly elaborate stories about like how great he was and like what he did. So that was really fun. And then there's like other people who just like wouldn't say anything, or they would just laugh. So you could just play off of that. So that was my favorite. And then the next time you met Barry, it was our first fight. So I was just screaming at this audience member about everything.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, completely. So you just had this like lovely scene between this like young couple, and then all of a sudden I was just shouting at Barry. Yeah. And then the kind of resolution was, that we didn't work out, and these are the reasons. So I really enjoyed that, and picked on not always male members, but like female members of the audience too.
Did you at least say, I love you, it's over to him?
Not to Barry, no, but that was a missed opportunity. But,
oh well.
I'd love to revisit that show and get new stories and play with it, because I think it was a really fun format. And it just goes quite wholesome and heartwarming as well at the same time, as much as it was about like strife and struggle. It was really fun. And then I was in Walls and Bridges in 2017 as part of ACS, which was a device piece about...
Shout out to candles.
Oh, yeah, candles and torches and stuff.
Candles.
It was dystopian, kind of what would happen if there was a wall built between Scotland and England after Brexit, and there was this underground group of artists who were trying to like reclaim the world, I guess. It was an interesting experience. It was fun. We did it. We self-lit it with torches, which was an experience.
Hashtag torches and candles.
Torches and candles. Got to wear a orange jumpsuit. Yeah, it was good. It was good actor discipline for me, because I didn't hate the show and I didn't love the show. It depended on the day how I felt about it. And I think it was good discipline to like still put on a good show and still invest in a monologue and like a whole storyline for an hour. It was really, and then take another show and organise the rest of the lot. It was good practice, I think, for just like what working life can be, because you don't always get to choose the shows you get to do. You know, especially in like the lack of work you get in the beginning of your career or whatever, you know, you can't always be that choosy. So that's what I took away from it, because it wasn't my first Fringe and I wasn't in that swept away feeling that a lot of other people were, which I think you should get when you do the Fringe for the first time, because it's such a magical, like life-consuming, wonderful like month, because you're just like, oh, I'm here and it's amazing and there's theatre. But the more you get into the grind of it, the more you see other parts of the Fringe and the kind of struggle that it can be, and how so many people pour so much money and time into it and it doesn't always work out. So that was good. I found that a good like discipline year.
Did you find that with doing, like, comparatively, obviously your first run was only...
It was
like,
very short.
Yeah, it was very, very short.
short.
And then you did, I'm assuming, you
Yeah,
did
yeah.
like a proper
full
run of the
thing,
Fringe.
yeah.
Like, how was that?
It was good. I did a longer panto run in between all that.
Okay.
So I think having like this, but that was residential. That was the only thing you were doing, kind of feeling.
Okay,
So
yeah.
like having the kind of mix of, but yeah, you're right. Doing a very short stint in Edinburgh compared to like the longer run. I think you just kind of learn your like max capacity.
Yeah.
In terms of travel and conversation and.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like in this amazing place and you want to do all the things, but at the same time, if you do all the things, you can't do the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's...
Whereas if you're there for 2 days, you just like pour your heart out and then it doesn't really matter. You can just get up on the bus back and it's done. So yeah, no, that's a good question. And then last year I didn't do anything. I was just a tourist, which was nice. And then this year, a friend of mine, Grant, he's a playwright. He's writing a play called Lockdown, which is set in a female prison. Oh, prison theme again.
Lovely.
Exploring, I think, more LGBTI and female representation within that setting. Yeah, so there's lots of different characters and they're all going to have kind of backstories and crossing that we're going to devise within the group who we cast. So we're auditioning for that this Thursday and the week after. So that's really exciting. The two of us are going to collaborate and then run the room. So we're going to have 10 actors. We're really excited to like do that devising process, but with him having the storyline kind of already written and then scripting it afterwards.
Yeah.
And kind of collaborating with like different ages as well, not just being like a group of peers who are all in their 20s. So
Yeah, I think like the prison's definitely a really good place to do that.
Exactly, yeah.
Because nobody... I think it seems to be, especially... in people I've spoken to, everybody thinks that everybody in prison's like 25 to 35. They're not.
They're
like,
not.
they're like, there's so many people who are not in that age group whatsoever. And people just seem to forget that. And you're like, oh wait, there's a 56-year-old man here.
Right, exactly.
Like, who's been in here since he was 18. Like,
yeah.
falsely accused and falsely charged. And then he gets out at 56 and you're like, oh, okay then. Like,
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to being on like the other side of the process in terms of auditioning. I'm really happy to be on the other side.
it's so cool.
But
it's so lovely.
yeah, and also to just like find new people that I'd love to work with, and yeah, give like see other actors and be inspired by them and help them be the best version they can be of their character on stage, and yeah, just all that is very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to taking that.
Sounds great.
We, over the course of last year, we had a volley of guests who were actually appearing in the Fringe, and so that happened. So did you get the chance to go see that the one with Laura and Adam are The Edge of You?
Edge of You one? No, I didn't. But I have very good reasons why not. Unfortunately, I had to... Basically, the month of August was quite difficult because I had to do lots of other stuff to be able to eat. So
Yeah,
I couldn't... I
fair.
like it was really difficult because I managed to see a lot of the Fringe work, but it's just I have no idea why I didn't. I wanted to see it because it was also... I know Adam was in Sex, Drugs and a Cup of Tea as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry about that one too.
I'm about to touch on.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
excited for that.
Like, I know, like but yeah, no, I wanted to, like, and it's really difficult. But like, as far as I was aware, it was dealing with such good topics as well. I feel a bit disappointed I never got to see it.
I think
It's really
for me
difficult.
now, that's the hardest thing about the Fringe is that there are so many things that I would love to see at the Fringe every year, because there's companies that I would never get to see without travelling hundreds of miles and spending lots of money. So I desperately want to see their work, because there's no other opportunity to do that. / I want to see stuff I would never bother to go and see anyway, right? Yeah. And then you've got all your friends who are also amazing and you want to support them, but then you're on this like budget of nothing. So that for me is the biggest like heartbreaking moment of the Fringe now, because you're like, well, I've got 3 days and I really want to see this piece of theatre and this has got a great review, and I've never seen someone dance and eat bananas at the same time. Like
Hashtag CPP.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
3 years of drama school for juggling bananas.
Yeah. Well, why not? Why not? Power to you.
Some things that like CPP people create, I've met like. I worked with one of the graduates from like RCS, but back when it was like RSAMD who did CPP.
Right, okay.
But it was fantastic because I think it's because they spent 3 years being ridiculously creative. By the end of it, their ideas were so zany and wonderful, but so well thought through as well. Like, so sometimes smearing yourself with Marmite and juggling bananas is a fantastic piece of theatre.
Excellent.
It just depends.
For listeners,
yeah.
For listeners who aren't familiar with the lingo, CPP is contemporary performance practice.
Yes,
which I couldn't begin to describe to you anyway what that means. So
performance practiced contemporary. I mean, that's what it is.
A friend of mine graduated in what's called DATE, which is Drama Applied Theatre and Education, which is mostly used for, you know, like if you remember at school when somebody would come in and do a performance for you and then you'd have like a talk about it at the end. That's where you can use that degree as well.
Or if you like run a youth theatre or, you know, stuff in elderly homes, etc., etc. So,
or putting on theatre in different locations.
Yeah, but to bring it back to EduU, yes, I mean, in all honesty, it was just a choice not to pick that one, because I thought if I picked one friend, then I've got to pick all the friends. So I just picked no friends. And I don't feel happy about that decision.
Good strategy, though.
But like, at the end of the day, if you've only got 2 days in Edinburgh, you're never going to see every show, and well, thankfully, I think I get to see my friends in other stuff as well. So, that would be my answer.
Yeah, I think that's something that I definitely struggle with, is that I want to see as much theatre and film and everything as possible, especially like even like, you know, tenfold.
Yeah.
If somebody I know is actually in it, because I if it's a comedy, I want to see one of my friends make me laugh, or if it's a tragedy, I want to see one of my friends make me cry. I want to have that, because I think it also comes down to trust as well. Like if you know the person, even if you're just familiar with them, you trust them to be able to be better actors. And I know it's a bit sometimes not always true.
But you want to sit there and be like, wow, you're even more amazing than I imagined this. Yeah.
Like, I think the Fringe really nails wonderful theatre, but it also nails really, really terrible theatre as well.
Stuff, yeah.
Like, and I love that. I think that's one of my most favourite things about the Fringe, that there's such a diversity between. Do you remember the year that we were at the Fringe?
Are we going to talk about this show that was upstairs?
We are going to talk about the show upstairs. We can come back to it later on if you want to move on.
No, let's do it.
Right, okay, cool. Okay.
Can I just add? Yes. I just found the notes that so you know when you're watching a really bad play, or a film or something, and you go on your notes app on your iPhone and you like send notes to like
I'm
the
so
person
furious.
next to you. I was enjoying the show. Yeah. I was literally.
Don't try.
I was basically. We were sitting right at the back because we got in late, and like we were thinking, oh my god, these people must be so good because they're sold out and they've got this huge space. It was literally
enormous.
So
massive. It was called Shakespeare on Love, which I found lovely. And I didn't realise this, and maybe that was just in my own naivety, but it was done by a group from America, and I believe it was like the youth arts organization for like Northwest America. So it was like from people from like Detroit and kind of Maine and all these different places, and they all kind of collaborated together. And this was kind of like presented to us like the pinnacle of their like A team. This was the best actors they could produce, and that they basically did a compendium of a lot of the love scenes that was in Shakespeare, and like how Shakespeare approaches different types of love, and if love's good for you and if love's not good for you. And now that sounds like a fantastic in theory. Like that's why also like it was really close by. It was really easy to go see, and we're like, fantastic. Like, I think we've been really lucky here. We can go see something that seems really, really good in principle. And then we went and saw Shakespeare on Love.
Was it really called Shakespeare in Love?
on Love, not in Love. On Love.
That makes
Shakespeare
sense, though.
on Love.
Shakespeare
Right,
on Love.
okay.
Shakespeare on Love. No, Shakespeare in Love is the movie.
Is the film, yeah.
yeah.
So basically, we got in for free because we were performing at the Space, and if you perform at the Space, you can go to Space things for free. Or discount, all free.
Yeah, or free or discounted.
Or discounted,
Depending,
depending on how, like, upmarket or
But
whatever
still,
it is.
Godsend.
No,
Well, the thing is that it was just, but it was just school kids. Like, none of them were actors. Like, they didn't understand stage craft. They didn't understand projection, some of them. Some of them were totally, like, literally, it was like they had never been on stage. And it was like, as much as I think it's amazing that people go on stage even if they're terrified and blah, 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 it's like, I don't know, because they had like 4 times the space that we had. And we were doing this really intensive, like 2 shows a day, 3 weeks at the Fringe. And then you go upstairs and someone has like a huge space, like curtains, like a proper stage with like raised seating.
Yeah,
and they were just school kids and we were just there like actors, like, oh my God.
I know why we went. We went because they would be outside our space making noise at the end of our shows. Because we were the floor below, so we had a bit that you could see the street level barely, and they would be like lining up to go, and they would just be really noisy, and you'd be like, oh, for God's sake, we're trying to do the last 2 scenes of a show here.
Like,
but it was,
it should have been up to the what's it called? The space, to tell them to shut up, because they should have known that amount of noise.
Kind of, I don't know. Yes, it's very irritating, especially when you're performing. However, like, that's the Fringe. Like, at the end of the day, you're in like the back dirty corner of a pub watching a show, or you're trying to compete with all the noise, or something's going really wrong, or it's like raining through the roof while you're performing. Like, if anything is the Fringe experience, it's dealing with kids outside. That's what it's about.
I agree with you to an extent, but if you're actors yourselves, you should have the respect of, like, when you're waiting to go on stage, to know that there are people in that building doing exactly the same thing, or like mid production. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're actors and you're about to go on stage, don't scream and shout, because you know that like right next door is a play going on, because they also met us and they knew that stuff was going on, because it was like on like flat screen TVs all around like the room that they were waiting in. So as much as I understand audience members, because they're having fun and there's a day out and they've got kids and blah blah blah, and they don't understand what actors go through every day, I understand that. But when you're actors yourself, surely you should know to be quiet around a space that you know has productions around
singing
you.
Oh Mickey, You're So Fine 20 times in a row at 155 decibels is
so funny.
It was so embarrassing. It was like, what the... And also, the funny thing is that, so our school, they were talking about how expensive our Fringe venue was, and it was 4 times smaller than theirs. So it was like, how much money are these people spending?
We need to say about what actually happened in the play, because I feel like we're not touching that, because Shakespeare on Love. No, it's like Shakespeare on Love. I think it was a really, really good way of looking at something and seeing exactly what not to do with Shakespeare. So it was quite good education in that sense. It was very, very melodramatic, and I felt that I really, really love when Shakespeare's performed, even in a much more naturalistic way than maybe even is traditionally performed. Like, I love seeing plays at the RSC, or even recordings of things like that. Especially, I actually saw Romeo and Juliet. That was the 2013 film version. I think it was like Charles Booth and is it Haley Steinfeld, or what her name is? Steinfeld. But I was really surprised. That's a really, really good adaptation of it. But they hit the nail on the head with me. It was done in a very naturalistic way, but it felt very natural. It felt very kind of easy to understand exactly what was going on. Whereas a Shakespeare on Love was like them diving around the stage and having a sword fight, or screaming at the top of their lungs, which I think there is a place for that in theatre. However, doing it for like an hour and a half and not really understanding what you're actually saying, apparently, is quite frustrating, especially when an audience member's paid money to go see them.
Yeah, I think that's what I found more annoying about it, was the fact that, I mean, whatever school or organisation put that on must be making hand over fist of money to come from America to rent accommodation for a whole group of school kids in Edinburgh for, I think it was only there for a week though. But even with a week, that's a lot of money rent. And then also to charge money for that, I feel is a wrong move, because the only people that would see that normally would be like friends and family, you know, like a school performance, which is fine, is what it is. But as something in a festival like that, I just feel it was horribly misplaced. And I don't know if that's what, if it was a podcast episode and we were reviewing it, it's unrateable because you can't judge it with the same standards you look at everything else, because it's a group of school kids just, you know, it's almost like an out of like a summer camp. Yeah. You know, that's their summer camp where they've gone over to Edinburgh, which is fair enough, but I think that should have been on the poster. I've got a prime story of this. When I used to work at the Edinburgh Playhouse as an usher, we had a show that was Into the Woods, but it was the Playhouse's like summer school. So you know, they would come in and they'd all get a part and you would do the show. But nowhere on the poster for that was it clear that it was an amateur production. Because I remember having people going, is this actually the show? I'm like, yeah. And like leaving, because they paid like, I know it was a reduced fee, but it was still like a bit more, probably about 16 odd quid up there. And it's an amateur production. I swear to God, that's the longest day of my life. Longest day of my life watching that show, because Into the Woods itself, the first act goes on forever.
Yes, it does.
And I was like, I want to die.
There are joys in the sky.
No,
honestly, it was the weirdest experience of my life, and I felt, and that made me understand what you would be like, not as an actor watching something, but as an audience member going, I've paid for this. I can't believe, I'm so annoyed that this is what I've got.
I think that's what really, I always find that in acting. That after I go through a process, and it obviously it's a continual process as an actor, I believe. Whenever you're performing or in rehearsal, and I think you always think about how can I make myself do something more altruistically, or why am I doing things, or you think about all the reasoning. But then when you get into performance, I think there does have to be a slight element of your thoughts to go towards, wait a minute, how is this translating to an audience member? How is like because the whole point of it, like, yes, I adore acting, but part of my job is to make other people enjoy what I am doing. Like, that's the whole point. It's meant to bring enjoyment. It's meant to do lots of other things as well, but
entertainment.
Entertainment is a big part of it.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Yeah.
Right. So we won't review individual shows, but just give kind of one thing that I loved about all of those. So the Edge of You was nice on the set. They used clothes to mark different rooms and stuff, just like Dogville did with the crayon on the floor.
Yeah.
That was quite nice.
Oh, fun prayer.
Follow the next one. So Emma and Adam R were in a play called Sex, Drugs, and a Cup of Tea. Did you go see that?
I was almost in that show.
Oh, go ahead. Go on then.
We teased this last September that I had a story about this. So it was like, I want to say it was the end of week 2 of the Fringe. And I got a message at like 11 o'clock at night from Emma, who's been on the show. She messaged me saying that one of the main actors in the show has just not turned up today and is saying, I'm done, I'm not doing it anymore. So she's like, are you available to do it? And I was like, well, is it, what's the deal? She's like, it's profit share. I'm like, okay. Are expenses covered? She's like, expenses aren't covered. I'm like, I don't have the resources right now to be able to cover my own expenses to Edinburgh every day. So I said, I'm sorry. I actually recommended another friend that was at the Fringe. I said, I know this guy. He's already there. See if you need somebody. I don't know if they ever followed up on that, but I gave somebody else's name because I knew I couldn't do it. So good job.
Which is what you should do as an actor. It's fantastic whenever somebody does that.
Which is a good job. I said no to the production because about 4 days later, I had to have my appendix out. So if I said yes to the role, I'd have to go, I'm really sorry, guys. I've just had an under the knife operation. I can't come back. You're going to have to get somebody else.
It was such a whirlwind because I think you guys were over at mine.
Yeah,
when you got that tech. I can't remember what it was. We were doing something. And then, like, I was just catching up with Anouk via text the other day, and you're like, oh, Adam's in hospital. I was like, does he need me to go there? Like, is he okay? Because you were away.
And that's
so that was quite dramatic.
Me and Anouk had went to the Fringe earlier with my mum and dad to see two shows. One of them I remember, which was called Nina's Got News, which wasn't that great. It was okay.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It was okay. It was not. It wasn't amazing. The only reason it was £16 a ticket, which the only reason for that was because Frank Skinner had directed and wrote it.
Okay. Right.
But the show itself wasn't that spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't really remember much about it, except it was the staging.
It felt like you were watching a rehearsal.
Yeah, that's a good spot. That's
it hadn't been fully formed yet, and I do know that quite a lot of big writers and directors will use the Fringe as a rehearsal, which is cheeky, but I mean great as well.
If you can afford to do that,
it's very smart. Yeah, it's very smart. But it's annoying for people that go to the Fringe to be like, this is all I can afford.
And do you remember the other thing we saw at the Fringe?
It wasn't a Scottish comedian.
It may have been. Maybe it was a comedian.
Which was quite tough because I think he's quite famous though, and it was just like a one-man show in lots of Scottish connections.
Oh,
and really intense Scottish accents, and half of it I didn't understand.
The show was a guy that came every year, and it was like it was an episode of a soap where he did like all the characters.
Right.
And every year the story would develop, like, so he would start and it's like, oh, I remember last year we were doing a little like recap, and then would do what would happen this year. So this year it was a christening, I think.
Right.
Or something like that. And there was all these characters that, but the main people that were in the audience were people that saw it the year before, which is a great marketing tool. It's like you get people on one year that come back and see it the next year. So that was a good thing. I mean, it was better than the other show, but I understand why Anouk had that problem. But the reason with my appendix out, because we saw these two shows, like, right, we'll come back later on. We're meant to come back like the last week of the Fringe and see some more stuff, like see the ACS shows, see Laura's show, who was on we had an episode, we did when we all got drunk for 3 hours, and then see Emma's stuff and Adam's stuff, and we couldn't because I couldn't get out the house and I needed somebody to look after me, so we couldn't go and see the end of the Fringe.
Lovely.
Great. That's my story with drugs, sex,
drug, and a cup of tea.
Gives you appendicitis, apparently.
Gives you appendicitis. would not see show. This show gave me appendicitis.
That is definitely like a TripAdvisor.
Not true. Just a joke.
It just, I think it means that this year we'll make like 3 times more of an effort to go see as much as possible because the last 2 years we haven't been so good. But I think actually, funnily enough, that connects with the French film, the comedic film that we saw, that like, you know that something's funny and that it will work if maybe I was brought up in Scotland, but there are some things that I would never understand because I've been here for 3-4 years now, so it's not like I didn't understand him. It's not like an accent issue, and there were certain things I got because, of course, I know everyone that are from different parts of Scotland, and so there are things and words that I understand.
Yeah.
But there are always going to be certain things that I will never get because I'm not Scottish and I wasn't brought up here.
I think it's something that people seem to forget a lot.
Like, especially I think so too.
I think like, especially with people like, I don't know if it was the same in your year at all, but it's definitely ACS, like, because ACS had a lot of different people from different areas all around the world, like all around Europe, I guess. Well, Caroline as well, I guess. But so all around the world, there were so many different cultures and so many different like comedy palettes that you wouldn't necessarily understand. Like Yana didn't really speak very good English when she first came here.
No, she was still learning.
In no offensive way, she just I cannot speak German. But
trust me, it's hard. I'm trying to learn right now. It's really bloody difficult.
But then I think it's like, that kind of encapsulated it. I just sometimes forgot, and you were like, oh, wait a minute, I'm kind of rushing through swathes of text and swathes of like dialogue with this person, and maybe they don't understand quite what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but me and Caroline had a conversation once, which was at the beginning of ACS. And I think, basically, you don't need to know what we were talking about, but it ended with me going, oh, what on earth is that all about? And she like looked me square in the face and went, what's Earth? I'm like, what?
That's Caroline.
She's like, what's Earth? I'm like, Earth. Like the planet that we're on. She's like, oh, you mean Earth? I'm like, yes, I mean Earth. I thought you meant Earth. I thought that was a different thing. I'm like, no, I mean Earth. As in the planet we're on. So yeah, you know, the accent in that. Also, the show, Anouk, I think, and I definitely feel that, and I feel confident in saying this, that me and Anouk brought down the mean age from about 153 to about 73 from us being there. So it was definitely a show for the older generation for sure.
It's like
which is actually nice. Which is actually nice that that's there at the Fringe as well, because now there's a lot of theatre for kids as well. So it's nice that if there's theatre for older people, there's theatre for younger people, definitely. There's theatre for everyone.
I think,
which is really nice.
Like in the main media as well, like Scottish is not something that you hear a lot.
No.
And I think I've only realised that when I moved up here, which probably is why, because everyone else doesn't realise that this is a problem.
No.
The same thing with people of colour. Like if you're white, there are certain things that you're not going to see.
Yeah.
Unless someone has spoken or you see it for a certain reason. Like, I know that Adam now sees it in every single film just because I'm always, like, pinching him. It's like, look how much they're white, everyone's white, and this, do you know what I mean? So it's like, so I would never say that in terms of don't ever do that show because I don't understand it. Like, but, I think it's quite nice that there are so many little things for everyone. And that's why certain, like the Fringe is so amazing because it does that.
I think that's something that's quite nice. I don't like, it's a new Netflix series called Sex Education. Don't know if you've watched it yet.
No, yeah.
I saw the advert there.
Yeah. Like, it's actually good. I would recommend 10 out of 10. Like, I actually do quite like it. It's obviously very irreverent, but it does do that quite well. It does actually take into consideration what a normal school would actually look like. And so like, I mean, I feel like the costume department, the lighting department's been very, very stylized and heavily colorized, which I quite like as well. But like the actual casting of everything, there are black people, there are Asian people, there are white people. It's like, it's not just an all white school. And granted, I went to basically an all white school. And that wasn't just because we were some type of horrible people. It's just that it was the West Highlands of Scotland. Like 95% of people were Scottish blue. They weren't even like white. Like they were translucently wonderful kelpies.
You only saw them when they walked when they walked against a black wall. You're like, oh wait, there's a ghost.
Isn't that a Billy Connolly joke where he says,
it must be. It must
he says something like, it takes me like a day to become white.
Actually, when I go on holiday,
I'm Scottish blue.
Yeah, that's the joke. He's like, I spend a week on the balcony before I go to the beach, you know, because I don't want to frighten the people.
Tyrell Jones and Sam Redway we had on for the Bin Laden, the one-man show episode. They had on War with the Newts last year. Did you see it?
No.
I didn't actually. What's it about?
It's so the Bin Laden was entirely original. There they adapted a science fiction novel from a Czech writer, I think. It's there's the discovery of a new type of newts in the ocean, and then they basically it's kind of they take over the world. It's kind of a sci-fi thing.
Okay, I quite like the sound of that.
The way it's done is really nice because you're sitting on oyster crates, and there is a scene in there. I don't know if you've ever seen Battlestar Galactica.
A little bit, yes.
Okay, at some point there is Gaius Baltar, who is kind of the leader for humans, who is he needs to sign something that will basically agree that all humans will become slave to Cylons, or he gets a bullet in the head. That kind of interesting choice. In this, the prime minister of around those parts, because it's transposed in the UK.
Right.
Has the same kind of choice, like to give land to the newts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit, that's as powerful as when the Battlestar Galactica thing.
Have you seen District 9?
Yeah.
So is it a little bit like that?
I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't remember.
Okay.
It sounds like it. It sounds a bit like District.
It will be a little bit like that. If you haven't seen it, see it, because it's based in apartheid South Africa, and they've basically taken the subject of like white and black people, like black people in the ghettos, but then they've made black people into like cockroaches. So it's like literally like they're different things and they're from a different planet. And so it's kind of a play on the fact that we've kind of dehumanized a whole race for no reason.
Yeah, doesn't it start off with the aliens turned up one day and then they just didn't leave? Mm-hmm. So we didn't know what to do. And we built this area called District 9 where all these aliens inhabit. Basically,
they just showed up one day. It's not like we invaded their entire continent where they were already living.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I quite liked about was one of the Black Mirror episodes, and it's the one where the guy gets the implant in his brain. He's in the army and he's fighting all these horrible creatures who are a bit like cockroaches, and it's like people who are like deformed or like these horrible monster things, and you should obviously have shooting them. But then one of them like knocks on the head and something comes loose or something. But then he realizes they're just normal people. But it's like somebody who has like a slightly higher chance of getting cancer, or somebody has a slightly higher chance of like having, I don't know, like an STI or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just the way that the politicians and everything have controlled them to think this way, and how they've literally dehumanized them. Mm.
Yeah.
But without this implant, a normal person, as such, would see them as another normal person. They wouldn't notice anything different about them.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely prone to that, aren't we? I mean, look at. Yeah. Let's not get political, but Brexit has basically done that.
In terms of the whole idea, it's a bit like District 9, indeed. And did you see last year's, the EU Inspector and I Sniper shows?
Yeah, this just goes to show how much there is at the Fringe.
Appendix.
I'm sorry.
How much there is at the Fringe?
Did none of us see it? Did none of us see the show? It was interesting. Well, Yann did.
Sorry.
Well, Yann saw it. You saw it, didn't you?
Yeah, I went and saw them in the first... On your year, I went to see it the shows, but 3 times on the opening night, middle run, and on the last. So I could see
it's not the journey, or just how tired
absolutely.
Tired and dishevelled.
I know it was a tough run.
Exactly, to be able to see your state of exhaustion and judge you in silence.
The best way, and that's what the industry is about, really, isn't it?
No, the EU Inspector was probably not as, because we did a version of that on our autumn show. Well, you did.
The government inspector's not government inspector's not Inspector General, Ken.
But yeah, how did it compare? Was it basically the same story, obviously adapted from more modern?
It was. Audience? I think there were more. There were some weird jokes, especially on the last night.
Uh-huh.
But there was also rotating casts. Well, they had 2 casts.
Okay.
But no, obviously I preferred your version because I knew people in there.
The problem is though the government inspector, as we know, is nearly like 3 hours, isn't it? It goes on for a long time.
We did definitely do an abridged version.
Oh, we did an abridged version.
I'm pretty sure we cut out
an
abridged version that was paraphrased by near enough everyone because it was so bloody long.
It was, but I have to say, it was done in a way which was still very, very true to what they were actually trying to say. There wasn't much improvisation. It was a lot of paraphrasing.
There
is a bit of a difference.
Whereas cutting that play down to an hour, actually less than an hour, like 54 minutes.
Yeah, that's a task.
That's going to be tough.
What's your task?
You had to audition.
Down a play.
You had to audition for this, and right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick did make us audition. I think I picked I picked the one that had basically no lines.
Posty. Yeah, lovely.
Not because I didn't, just because I thought, the post was quite a cool role.
It was.
And then
role.
Nick got to the end. He's like, I basically want to cut your entire part. I'm like, and I learned as an actor, I'm like, if you get to that moment as an actor, just commit everything. Because I went, all right, I'm just going to do my lines, but I'm going to put on the most Fife accent as possible. It was one of the few laughs glorious. In the show, because the show was the version we did was a free adaptation.
Yes.
So it was very oldie translated Russian. So sticking a funny accent on that added some of the laughs of the show, so none of my lines could get cut.
I think that was a really good, that is very much a thing you've got to learn as an actor, that if you're worried about lines being cut, make sure, this is actually any job, make sure whatever you do cannot be cut, because it's so either too integral to the plot or too integral to the audience's enjoyment. And I really loved that play. It was a really, really good fun play to do, because I actually did have fun doing it. I think that's sometimes when you look at a Russian epic, I think some people can maybe be put off a little bit about that. They'll be like, okay, I'm reading it and it's taking me hours to read this script. Like, it's going to be a tough one to kind of make an audience member kind of stay away.
I'd love to try that show again with a cast. A cast that is fully committed the whole way through, because if everyone was committed at the beginning and then Nick kind of vanished, and then half of the cast were like, we've got so many assessments to do, we can't focus on this. So it was like half of us were invested, half of us had other things going on. Yeah. So I'd love having a go at that.
I think there's a lot of negative energy that comes with the job as well, and sometimes you need to work on your own self-care and positive energy around you, because you might not get that audition, you might have a bad audition, you might have you might be working with really horrible people. Of course, I think we've all done that. Yeah. And so you have to find the positivity, and sometimes that positivity is the 5 seconds that you're on stage or you're on film. So if you don't like that part of it, there's no point, because then you'll literally kill yourself for no reason. You have to love that 5-10 minutes of you being on film or on stage, because
It's like, the people always say to me, I don't know if it's the same for you, I'm sure it is, but people who like theatre, but they always say, how can you do it? How can you go through all of the stuff that you go through as an actor? And it's just because I don't think they understand what it's like to actually act. The feeling that you get and the sense of freedom, the sense of love and passion that you have for something, it's worth going through 2 weeks of not knowing what the hell's going on and where I'm going to eat next. And then you get a role and then you really, really love it. And then you work with people who are really creative, and then you go on film, and the film's a 15-minute long film. But for that 50 minutes, you are so enthralled and so in love with exactly what you're doing. I think that's what I almost get swept away with it. It's such a passion and it's a vocation. It's I don't want to be able to do anything else. It's it's the same as if you see your child going underneath a bus, what is the thing you have to do? You have to go save your child. It's the same thing as
fuck's sake, Ollie.
Yeah, aye. Goodness sake, Ollie. Aye. But it's that it's not something you think about, it's just something you have to do. It's a reaction that you have to kind of carry on doing.
And when people feel like that when they work or when they perform,
you see their work, you really see it.
Especially at the Fringe, the people who are just this is their burning passion and they just have to tell the story or do the show or whatever it is. You can tell, and it's so infectious. So, yeah.
That's what I love as well. I really love seeing other people, even not necessarily in acting, but other people just loving their job, and they're saying damn, they've really got it sorted. Good for them. I'm really happy. You go, Karen. You enjoy being a paralegal. You go, David. Well done for being on the checkouts at Asda. Good for you. But same as actors as well. It's lovely to be able to watch somebody who's so in love with being in that working environment and working with other people and doing the right thing for them. It's really interesting. I think the Fringe is really good for that. Because even if you're not any good, they're at least in love with it.
Yeah, because I bet you could see a show and hate the show but love the performance
I've done
because of
that
how
many
much
times.
they love it. I bet we've all been there. Yeah. Or been that person and been this show's awful, but I'm living my best life doing it. So
I listen to the Guilty Feminist, of course, podcast, and shut up. And there's one episode where they're talking about Nazanin, the woman that's in the Iranian prison, falsely accused, and basically they brought in two people that have just put on a play about her, because there were quite a lot of moments when the Iranian journalist would be like, oh yeah, this person was tailing journalists and that's why she's in prison. Right. And Boris Johnson fucked up and lots of blah, blah, blah. It became really political. But basically they had two people that put on a play, and the reason why is because they heard the story and that's the first thing that they thought of doing. And it's like, that made me feel amazing, because it's like they heard something that was so political and emotional, and there was feminism involved, but also about like cultures and different ways of like dealing with things, and that's the first thing they decided to do. And it was like, it was nice because you realize that can change the world, but also that's the one thing that people can bring to the world. Like you don't have to be, I don't know, a professor or a doctor or blah, blah, blah. Like you can just put on a play about something that made you feel something. Yeah. And that's the way that I think everyone on this couch and chair feel, that like, if
Not Yann.
If you not Yann doesn't feel this way.
Yann doesn't feel this way.
He's just in it for the money.
Exactly. He's just realised he's in the wrong location.
Imagine if somebody came on the show and went,
oh shit.
Sorry guys, bye.
Well, like, more power to
Well, that's when we know if they go like, what's my fee for coming on? It's like, oh, right, okay, fair enough. There we go. There's the first feeler.
No, I love that you said that, because I think using whatever it is you do to use the things that like hurt your heart, or the things that really inspire you, or like the stories you just want to celebrate, and putting them out there. That's what I love about theatre, is the things that challenge you, or you think no one else is going to hear about this unless we put it on stage, or we put it in a film, or we, whatever it is. Or, like people starting charities about things that matter to them, just because it's a thing that bugs them. Yeah. I think that's such a great thing that we as people generally, in a more like, oh, aren't we all lovely? And kind of way, that's such a cool thing. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like I think that's what, for me at least, encapsulates a true artist. Is somebody that has to react in that way. Like it's like it's dealing with like a painter. Does like you see all these paintings, you go to all these art galleries of beautiful scenes of landscapes and things like that. But the painter's not painting it because it's a nice, pretty picture of a mountain. They're doing it because they have such emotion and it's such an emotive response, and that's why they're doing it. It's not just because they want to. And it's the same as acting. It's not, somebody doesn't just write a play because they want to. They have, there's something inside them saying, no, I need to put this down. And other people experience the same thing as I'm feeling as well. Like, same with musicians or, dancers, all these different things. And although not everybody gets what the person's trying to do. Yeah. I think I kind of prefer that in a way, because then when you do understand what they're trying to do, it almost feels like you're part of like an in-crowd. You're like, God, I get it now. Like, cool. I really understand that person's thought or the way they feel. And I think from the side of an actor, that's what I always want to try and do for an audience member. I want to be able to like say, I understand what he's doing and why he's feeling that way.
I feel like we could chat like this for days, but no, don't worry about it. It's just do we have anything else about the Fringe, or are we happy going off on this tangent? Yeah, and you go.
Well, I think that connects to.
Well, of course,
Fringe.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just reminding you
No. I just mean like it's a good point, because sometimes like huge conglomerate Hollywood executive producers won't take up something like that because it's too political. They might offend people and, oh God, what will that person think? And we have to make everyone feel okay. And that's what's amazing about the Fringe, is that there are some things that they do, like the one-man Bin Laden show, that would probably be so offensive to everyone.
Can you imagine?
There were Americans behind us.
From 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
Bin Laden.
They had a Q&A afterwards, and there was an American couple behind us, and she was like, what was it? Because they were performing it all around the world. And she was like, how was that performing in New York? Because that would have been like something that really... And he was like... you then realize that you're talking to people who understand that you're not doing this to be like, oh, by the way, I agree with whatever all of the things that you did. Like, everyone's intelligent. It's just that sometimes the media only focuses on the crazy redneck people who are like, oh, fuck feminism and fuck, black people, and I don't believe in, so it's like, actually people that go and see theatre productions usually know what they're doing and know what, the reason behind certain
I really like that, because I feel sometimes in film as a media form, you just assume that the people on screen like subscribe to whatever they're doing. Do you just associate them with that thing? And even, not always, but that's kind of a general rule. Whereas in theatre, especially if you've got a post-show discussion, there's the ability to be like, oh, I'm an actor with even in better words, inclusive of that, I am a person who has opinions, and you're a group of people who have opinions. Let's talk about the thing I've just challenged you on, not I am Bin Laden, or I am the rapey man in this scene, or I am this weird looking child, whatever it is you're playing. There's like this opportunity for dialogue, I think, more with live performance that you don't get with film.
Yeah, especially because the press junket has just become like, who are you sleeping with, and what what underwear are you wearing?
I love that. It's great. I
Do you know what
the day that happens to me.
Do you know what the best answer to the what underwear you're wearing question is? You just say your partner's.
Oh,
immediately, just to throw them off. It's like, I'm wearing my partner's.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I got anything else? Sorry.
I'm glad you've prepared that answer.
Oh, absolutely. Whose underwear are you wearing? My wife's.
My wife's.
I'll just power through some of the stuff that I liked. You probably haven't seen, but I recommend you to watch out for that if it comes back. Last year, 2 years ago, they had the Darkfield company. They had just outside of Summerhall a maritime container where inside there was a seance. So it was using binaural sound, 20 people in a room, 10 on each side, completely dark, and it with the use of the powerful sound, stuff were moving, and you had the feeling that it was a seance that was going badly. And
fantastic. I love that.
Sounds cool.
This year was same company, something called Flight. So they had 9 rows of airplane seats, and it was kind of a flight going rogue.
Was it Darkfield company, did you say?
Yes.
Darkfield. Okay, yes. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Sounds great.
They are touring, so both shows are actually in few places. Aaron Calvert, my mentalist friend, Declassified, was quite nice. First time that he was not doing the free fringe, it was actually the standard one.
He's getting paid.
Colin Cloud, his yearly show, Psychological. It changes every year, so you won't be able to see that. But he has some nice stage gimmicks, like sometimes like the light will fall on him when he's like just talking to the audience and not on the people on the stage. Some nice stuff. He's getting really close to and as big as Darren Brown, more and more each year. Okay, so I talked about Shitface Shakespeare, Hamlet, also Hamlet and Experience.
Yes.
Emily Carding, who was a year before doing Richard III, the one-woman show. This year she did Hamlet. And basically it's a one-woman show, but when you enter, you get distributed scripts. So you play the other parts, and I played Polonius again.
There you go.
You're destined.
And it's quite bold for many reasons, including the fact that there is also a part for Laertes. So she does a flash stage combat course in there for a few seconds, like what you have to do. That's and what is quite interesting also and funny is the year after that, or a few months later, I was at my mum's vineyard, just being there, and there is a kind of a tour thing that you have to pay to go there. But anyway, we had some new people we've never seen before, including one of which who was Emily's cousin, actually.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. Small world.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah, I know about the show, and I know the director as well, and just love the ethos of those, like the shows they make of like using direct address and making it for an audience, and like in other immersive shows you're talking about, I think there's something so exciting about getting an audience involved or experiencing theatre in a new way, getting them involved, getting them a part. I don't know, for me that is so exciting. So I love that you love that.
And Hamlet, Horatio's Tale also, which was also a one-woman show. It was the story from the perspective of Horatio, and the voice was the voice of the ghost. Just the voice was Derek Jacobi, which was very nice.
Nice.
Okay.
And Filth, which was a Filth one-man show, which was phenomenal. I experienced for the first time dining experiences like Fawlty Towers.
Oh yes.
It's
Hello.
fantastic. I
Yeah.
love Fawlty Towers. So
And
much.
Only Fools and Only Diners and Horses or something, which was not as funny. But I didn't know. I had some notions about the Fawlty Towers, but haven't seen it. But I had absolutely no notions for the
All right. Yeah.
Only Fools and Horses.
Nice.
Yeah, I think maybe it might have been a show that if you'd seen
Yeah.
the original thing, it might have been a bit better, like with more in jokes, I guess.
In the improbable stuff, you talked about CCP, that kind of weird. I went to see Babyface at Summer Hall. It's a grown-up woman, like 19 or something, who was playing a toddler, and it was about the sexualization of kids.
Yeah.
And it was really like she was crying, shouting, flirting. It was really disturbing kind of stuff.
Wow.
So I experienced that kind of thing, and physical theater for the first time. Wojciech.
Oh, I like Wojciech.
I went to see that. Recommended by Laura. I was scouting some Twitter profiles at the time. So, it seems like that we talked about My Right Left Foot already. And Spontaneous Potter, which was quite interesting, improv on the theme of Harry Potter, which was quite nice. And Phantasmagorical, I heard about a friend who wrote and directed this, but the leading lady it's not really a seance, but you're welcomed by a woman, like the same kind of a woman in black, kind of, there's a dark thing, and there is a fake cat, like, it's really strange. Now, so I'm done with that. So if you see them, come back, go see them. We saw, most of us right now in this room did Acting Coach Scotland on their first year.
Yeah.
As for me, I explained that a few times already. The first 6 months were focused on learning a technique and doing some plenty of stuff in the studio. And it all really, for me, clicked together when we had for the first time a paying audience. Because I was really, really struggling, all the first 6 months, really. And I know that on the year 2, you had, like, you had some people before, like you had the improv thing, so you were not entirely a virgin of paying, but
Sure.
How did he, and also I don't think you had performance classes. I don't know, there was something, how was it, the change from being among your peers to suddenly have some paying audience?
Sure. I think I come at that question from a very different standpoint to some of the other people who are on the course because I'd done shows before to paying audiences. So it wasn't so much the fear of like, and now people are, the general public are here. That wasn't so much my fear. It was more, can we as a group achieve this? But yeah, it was still a big change because you're approaching it with all this new information and you're like kind of figuring out who you are as an actor and where you're excelling and where you're finding, especially with improv and stuff, what you find difficult. So yeah, going from the kind of improv show, which was in very early days of like us forming, to the Fringe, I think they were just miles apart of who we were as people. So I found it good, but also challenging.
Did you not have performance classes?
Yeah, we definitely did.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
not
know.
the same format as we did. We had one like every week.
I think we did do every week, but they were just book of sides. This is boring information, but I think it was just book of sides for like ever. And then we started doing the assessments, became our performance classes.
All right. Okay.
I think we're also thinking about last year's. I think last year they changed the performance class things rather than 2017. 2018 was I think they changed the
big
format,
overhaul.
but I think Mari and our year had the same format.
Yeah, I think we were quite similar. I think their aim with our year, I don't know if this was with you, was the Fringe was supposed to be, if you're going to make theatre or work, when you leave this place, this should be how you do it.
Yeah.
So it went from being, this is your actor, learning your actor trade and tools and blah, blah, blah. You've got all that now. How are you going to make work? I think that was the difference. It wasn't so much focusing. I mean, yes, we did. We went through, analysing text and creating a character and, all that, all the kind of nitty gritty. But it was more like, how can you get a production on its feet so that you can do the stuff you want to do for your job rather than thinking about you personally.
Yeah.
Like drawing upon that, like taking something to the Fringe, I think is a really, really integral part of like an actor's journey or an actor's career. Like even if it's not necessarily the Edinburgh Fringe, like I did stuff in the Glasgow Southside Fringe as well.
Nice.
And that was a completely different atmosphere to the Edinburgh Fringe because it felt a little bit less organised in a, this is a big deal, this is the Fringe way. It's kind of more like, just so you know, there's lots of theatre happening around this time in like May and June time. Why don't you come along and see stuff? Whereas I think Edinburgh can sometimes feel almost a little bit daunting, especially if you haven't been before. So I think any actors or theatre makers or anybody who's at all involved with the arts, who wants to be involved with the arts, I'd still say if you can, go see the Fringe.
Yes.
Go see the Fringe.
Yes.
Even if you go see some free stuff and then only watch a couple of paid shows. Because I understand budgeting and expenses are high, especially in Edinburgh at the time of the Fringe, everything's expensive. I would say definitely go see stuff like that.
100% agree.
Because it's so enlightening, even if you have no interest in being an actor. Even if you have an interest in just being a well-rounded human being, go see the Fringe. Because it's fantastic. Because there's so many experiences that the actors bring and the theatre makers bring to it. That then when you're saying, how as a person working in the arts in Scotland, how do I make work for myself? This is how you should do it. It's such an integral part of your career.
Absolutely.
Because I think everybody would love to go to.
The atmosphere alone at the Fringe, right? It's like, even if you don't even go into a venue, if you're just in Edinburgh during August, that alone is an experience for anyone.
It seems familial, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I like there's people from time zones away from you.
Yeah.
And they can be your best mate by the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And it's so lovely. And I think it's something that I really like about Glasgow as well. That people are just friendly with each other. And you can just kind of, and then you're really friendly with somebody, and then you go see a really piece of interesting theatre, and there's always fantastic things. And then, like, if you take a show to the Edinburgh Fringe, yes, it is stressful as hell a lot of the time. You're panicking, going, how are we going to afford this? Oh my god, I'm so stressed, I haven't learnt my lines. What's going on? We're like 2 months to go, we need to get everything sorted out. And then, like, you finally get there, and I feel, drawing upon some of the points we were saying earlier on, that when you're actually performing at the Fringe, it's such a wonderful experience. The actual performing side of things is very rarely a stressful thing, because that's the expulsion of all of your energy, or that's what kind of gets rid of any of the pent-up stress that you have, is just performing and then enjoying that. And yes, you do have lots of kind of stresses on the organisational side of things, but I feel that ACS definitely kind of helped with that a little bit, because it said, look, we're going to hold your hand through this particular process. This is how it's done. You don't need to be worried about it. Yes, we are going to perform at an internationally renowned festival for 3 weeks, and people are going to come in and look at you and judge if you're good at acting and see if they like you play or not. But it wasn't done in a way where, on, what was it, the 6th of August, or what was it? 5th? So the 5th of August, we kind of walked in and going, I'm petrified with me. I can't talk to anybody about it. It was just lovely. Like the 5th to the 27th was wonderful because it was just really good fun. And I was acting with my mates, and it was lovely.
And at the end of the day, if a critic, or and critic is a loose term at the Fringe sometimes, doesn't like your show, if anyone doesn't like your show, it doesn't really matter, because they're going to be in another venue watching another show in 20 minutes. It isn't so much for like changing like the whole world to make them see you immediately. It's just about like enjoying the fact that you get to perform.
Where do you stand on critics? Do you read like the reviews?
What, at the Fringe?
Yeah, so at Fringe, and then is it different for? So I'm slightly hijacking now. I don't mean to.
That's the question we asked last year.
Is it okay? Okay.
Reviews.
I think reviews are really, really helpful, especially at the Fringe. If you get the right stuff, it can really help you sell. And I think if you're taking a show, get reviewers in, for goodness sake, no matter who they are. It's worth getting a review in. However, I do feel if you're an actor, it can be unhelpful to read that stuff, especially whilst you're in a run, because a lot of, and I'm not saying there are terrible people criticising shows during the Fringe. I'm just saying they're not always people who are always critics.
Yeah.
They're sometimes people just working for companies, and actually they don't have the best tools to analyse a performance in terms of the context of what they're seeing, because they'll probably be seeing a show with a really massive budget and done by whoever, the National Theatre or whatever, and then they're going to see Little Jimmy's School. Do you know? And they're trying to compare them on the same level, which isn't what a professional critic would do. So I would always take their criticism with a pinch of salt, and I find it hard to compare reviews at the Fringe.
Yeah.
Because someone's 5-star, it's so down to taste and what you're after at the Fringe. Yeah. Do you know? So I don't read them if I'm in it, but good reviews make me go and see shows at the Fringe.
Yeah.
Cool.
But usually from like bigger sources rather than something lower.
Ouija and Bob's blog.
Yes.
Shall we venture into the realm?
Yeah, do you feel you have anything else to add?
Sorry, I just wanted to jump. You don't have to keep this in, but when you're talking about all the shows you liked, one, I'm very jealous. It makes me want to go and see more theatre at the Fringe, but also just reminded me of a couple companies. So Kill the Beast are a kind of comedy, culty, very like slapsticky style theatre company who make their own shows. They're currently doing director's cut. I don't know if they're bringing it. They kind of do a year and do a year off kind of idea. But what one I saw was He Had Hairy Hands, which was like this Wolverine kind of. Anyway, they're wonderful. It's actually my brother-in-law's cousin who's in it and runs the company, and it's fantastic. And also Harry and Chris, who are a rap jazz duo. So it's kind of spoken word and music, really, really clever stuff. And you can listen to their like songs and set on Spotify. So have a look for Harry and Chris.
Congratulations, this is the end of part 1. You've unlocked part 2, which is the questionnaire, which is on a separate audio file for you to enjoy. It's the questionnaire we have with our guests. So if you want to hear what Mary and James's answers to our Milk in a Wineglass questionnaire is, tune into episode 2. While we're here, Anouk is now in a Fringe production. She's actually in 2, but the one that we want to discuss right now is She Shall Not Be Moved, which is currently crowdfunding. So at the top link of this episode is a link to the GoFundMe page for that show. It's by Stuff Puffin and Black Ginger. It's a really interesting show, actually. I read some of it with Anouk when she was auditioning for it, and it is five or four female monologues about different issues, and it's really well written, and I'm really excited to see it. So if you feel like helping in any way, we will leave the link at the top of the episode description. So thanks for listening, and we hope you stick around for part 2. See yous.